And hello there. Here we are, a nice fall day. It's unbelievably beautiful out, and Karen is back with more theory for grade 9 students. Today we're talking about the uses of the second inversion triad. We have been using our root position and first inversion for quite some time now in our theory, and we have all the way along known that with our 6/4 chords that we will be doubling the bass. So let's just review. Root position, we're going to double the root. First inversion, we should still double the root. Second inversion, we double the bass, which is the 5th of the chord. Now, one of the other things that we also learned is that this is very unstable. So you have to picture a snowman who's upside down. His head's on the bottom and his big tummy's on the top, and he's ready to topple over unless he's leaning against a tree or a fence or a house. And that's the same way it is with our second inversion triads, that they can't stand on their own without having something to lean on. And so therefore we end up with very specific progressions that we are allowed to do with these 6/4 chords, and then we are told don't use them any other time. So here it goes. Below you will be able to get this sitting right here. So the title is Drilling 6/4 Progressions. Now you're going to notice that there's no key signatures and no keys here. Well, the reason that I did that is I would like you to drill these in many different keys over the next few months. So every so often, part of your homework will be to provide this to me in a different key to keep them going. For today, I think we're going to stick with the key of G major for this entire explanation today, so that our 1 chord is GBD, 4 is CEG, and 5 is D F sharp A. So let's put an F sharp at the beginning of each of our staves, and then we'll notice that the first thing it says is it's a passing 6/4. So the passing 6/4 is the chords 1, 5, 6, 4, 1, 6. And you'll notice that I've got or vice versa. You can draw this one backwards. Now, when we put in our bass for this, our 1 chord would be a G. Our 5, 6, 4 bass would be an A because it's DFA. And our 1 in first inversion would be a B. And as soon as you draw those 3 notes in, you can see that this middle note could be interpreted, if it was not a whole note, as a passing tone between G and B. So we're going to build a chord on a passing tone, making a passing chord, which is how this got the name passing 6/4. Now, under normal circumstances, we just keep on building things up and down, but there's some across to do here. Let's put in our first chord. We've got a G as our line 1 note. Let's put B sitting on top of the bass clef staff, a G on line 2 for the alto, and a D on line 4 for the soprano. So mine looks like this. Now, shapes matter. Our bass goes G, A, B. So another voice, and it doesn't matter which one it is, must do the exact opposite and go B, A, G. The way I've got this written, that means this one goes down and this one goes up. And we all know that contrary motion makes it so that we don't have parallels. Now, we're going to have one voice that stays the same. And between GBD and DFA, the common tone is D. So we're going to put a D right across. Now, often we hide that in a middle voice, but in our example, it's in the top voice. When we look at our 5, 6, 4, we've got a D and 2 A's, so we need the F sharp. And that F sharp is our leading tone of G major, so it rises to the tonic. Those are the only shapes that work for this. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 8, 7, 8, 5, 5, 5. Those are your shapes. Now, if I just move this over, we can also do a passing 6/4 between the 2 4 chords. Now notice that I've drawn this one with the first inversion at the beginning and the root position at the end. That's because this could be done reversed, this can be done reversed, and I wanted to demonstrate it reversed. So 4 in first invert, 4 is CEG. So 4 in first inversion would have E as the bottom note. 1 in second inversion, GBD, would have D on the bass. And the 4 in root position would have a C on the bass. So my second bar is looking like this. Now notice that a primary chord, we double our root. So that means in our 4 in first inversion, I'm going to put a middle C for our tenor. Line 2 G for the alto, and space 3 C for the soprano. We need to have 2 roots in that chord. The same shapes are going to work here as they did before. We say what note's the same? In C, E, G, and G, B, D, that's the G, so we're going to draw it the same all the way across. And then we say if the bass goes E, D, C, another voice has to go C, D, E. Well, let's pop him in the soprano. So right now, this is what I've got so far. And then I say I've got a G and 2 Ds. I need to put a B here. And he's going to go back up to the C. And voila, there is your passing 6/4 in the key of G major. 2 different versions. No, we are not going to be using it between 2s and 3s and 7s. We're only going to use it here. And these guys fit inside a bar. So we won't ever have a bar line in the middle of a passing 6/4. They are going to fit inside the bar. And now, just before I finish that, let's see what that sounds like. Or so essentially the ear hears one chord with another just movement chord between. It's passing between them, which is why it's a passing chord. So that is your first example of how to use a 6/4 chord. Our second example is our neighbor 6/4, and I often call this the silent night 6/4 because this is how it starts. You can see I've got written on mine 1, and then I've got 5/3-6/4-5/3. This is what the chords add up to, and this is often how we do it. As soon as we have dashes in here, it is telling you what each voice must do. That the voice that has the 5 has to go up to the 6 and back down to the 5. That's what these dashes mean. So if we draw our 1 chord, because 1-5-3 just means 1 in root position, let's do the same as we did for the first one. G on line 1, B sitting on the staff. G on space line 2 in the treble, and D on line 4 in the treble. Now when we say 4-6-4, we go C, E, G. The bass is going to stay the same across. And that G is also the common tone, so another voice is going to have G's all the way across. So we have 2 voices with G's all the way there. Now, this is a neighbor 6/4. We have a C and an E missing from the middle note. The C could go between next to B or next to D. He's a step away. But the E only fits next to the D. So we go up to the E and back to the D. And with the B, we go up to the C and back to the B. And you can see that in here, it looks like the E is a neighbor tone to the 2 Ds, and the C is a neighbor tone to the 2 Bs, but that this adds up to a 6/4 chord, which is why this is called a neighbor 6/4. And if I played for you, is what this sounds like. And all I have to do is add that rhythm, and you know that you want to hear. That is just what a neighbor 6/4 sounds like in real music. It's out there. This is the whole thing. That's what we're teaching you, is music that actually exists. So just like the passing 6/4, we can do this with one of our other primary chords, and that is the dominant. So that means we're going to put a D, and we're going to draw 3 Ds all the way across. Now with this one, just as an aside, you can see that the beginning and the ending chord match. So that means this is called a palindrome, because forwards and backwards, it's the same thing. So there is no backwardsing it like with our passing 6/4, because backwards is forwards. So let's build up our chord, and I've got an A on line 5, F sharp line 1, and D on line 4. And because I've got a D, I'm going to put the D all the way across as the common tone. So now I've got that. Now my neighbor 6/4, the neighbor is always going upward. So it's going to go up to the G and back down to the F. The A is going to go up to the B and down to the A. Oop, that's not a very good A, is it? There we go. I'm drawing backwards, aren't I? So that literally... So you could actually hear that at the end of a piece. That's how Amen is added actually at the end of the hymns that were done. Usually in the 1900s and 1800s, they added the Amen at the end of everything. And it really was just a neighbor 6/4 added at the end. So what we've learned so far is your passing 6/4 has a voice that goes 1, 2, 3, another one that goes 3, 2, 1, one that stays the same, and then one that goes like 8, 7, 8. It has a downward neighbor note. And then our neighbor 6/4 has 2 voices that stay the same and 2 voices that make an upper neighbor and come back down. So now we are going to the cadential 6/4. This is the 6/4 progression that is essential to understand at grade 9, because it is everywhere. And it is everywhere in your music. It is going to be used in your hymn writing. It's everywhere. So what are the numbers? Here we go. We've got more dashes. Now I'm going to tell you that right off the bat, we're going to do this in a rhythm. We're not just going to do this guy in whole notes. So let's put 4/4 time at the beginning of this. Now for the 5, our Roman 5, we need to put a D in the bass as a half note. And for the Roman 1, it'll be a G as a half note. Now the D, we're going to double the D because it's the dominant of the key. Let's put him somewhere else. I am putting him in the alto, sitting underneath the treble clef staff. Now it says I have to have a 6 and a 4. A 6 above D is B, and a 4 above D is G. But now I'm actually going to color these guys in, because my 6 has to go to my 5, and my 4 has to go to my 3. And that doesn't look very good, but it is right there on my F sharp. And now we have D, F sharp, A. When we go to GBD, our common tone is still D. Our leading tone is F sharp, so it must rise to the G. And that leaves a B left to put in. And we get this as one of the most important authentic cadences that is out there. So it sounds like this. Now, just like the other 6/4 progressions, there are 2 versions. We have also got one that has an 8-7, 6-5, 4-3. Well, we better put our D as a half note in the bass. And our G, oh, I had it go to 6. The cadential 6/4 can lead to 1 or to 6. So that means we're going to put an E in the bass in the second bar here. Now, again, we've got an 8, a 6, and a 4. We just have to put those intervals above this D. So an 8 is a D. Just for something different, I'm putting it on the middle C ledger line for the tenors to sing. The G is still a B, and the 4 is still a G. But this time, I'm actually coloring all the top 3 in because they each have a job to do to move. And we notice that each one is going down by 1 number, which means it's going down by 1 letter. So B is going to go down to A, G is going to go down to F sharp, and D is going to be down to C. Now we have a complete dominant 7th to resolve. We're going to a 6, and when 6 follows 5, we double the 3rd. So that means we've got E, G, G, B to do, and the E is in the bass. Our 7th in our dominant 7th, DFAC, is C. It must fall a 2nd, so it's going to go down to a B. Well, if we've got the E and the B in, and we have 2 G's left, it looks like we are going to have a G unison for our sopranos and altos to sing. So our 7th fell a 2nd. Our leading tone rose to the tonic. We have a double 3rd because Roman 5 was going to Roman 6. And this is a cadential 6/4 within a deceptive resolution. Next on this particular sheet is a deceptive cadence, which you could either draw as 5/6 or dominant 7th to 6. And after that is a plagal cadence, which is 4/1. And I'm going to leave those to you to do. But I'm going to bop down to that bottom line. This line is one that I ask you to go over many, many times. The dominant 7th resolves to 1 in 3 ways, either with the dominant 7th incomplete, with the 1 incomplete, or with them both complete. This one is the most useful when the dominant 7th is incomplete. So if we're in the key of G major, that would be your DFAC taking out the A and putting in another D. This, of course, would be called D7. And in here, when we resolve this, our tonic has to be G. Our 7th falls a 2nd, so that C goes down to a B. Our leading tone rises to the tonic, so F sharp up to G. And we have a common tone, and we finish it. Everything has a job. There's no parallels. Everything's resolved. Now, I'm just going to change the next one just by a hair for you. I'm going to put in my 4/4 time signature again. So I just popped on my stems. And what did I do here? I said that this was a dominant with an 8-7. So I'm still making the 1 incomplete. It still follows through with the norm. So we need to draw our dominant, but it says 8-7. So we're going to start with the triad. So you can see that I've got a triad. And now my 8 above D is D, so I'm going to color him in. And he's going to go to a 7 above D. Oh my goodness, that wasn't very clean. There we go. And he goes to there. So on this, we would say that this is, I can't write upside down, this is a G, and this is now, okay, a G7. There we go. I have to turn it around. So it starts on a G triad and becomes a G7. That's what that 8-7 means. And then when we resolve that to 1, because I've said that it's going to be incomplete, we're going to have a tripled G and no D. So my 7th falls a 2nd, C goes to B, D, and we have a common tone in the soprano, and we have our leading tone rising to the tonic. So D, D, F, D. So I started with this incomplete because I want D, D, F, C, G. Oh, hang on. Goodness gracious. I just did a great 8-7, but I did not make my one incomplete. Aha. So I needed to go back to my first chord, and I need to recalculate that. My apologies. I needed a complete chord over here, with this being an A. And now that I've really gone wrong, that should be a D to a D7. Thank you for bearing with me. So now that I have this more logical, I've got D, D, F, A. This D went to a C, and then G, B. This seventh resolves down a second, G, G. So if you have an 8-7, it works out quite nicely. So now we're working with dashes. I'm going to do it again. The next one we have both of the chords complete. Please remember that this is the trickiest way to actually resolve your dominant seventh. Most people either have a seventh not resolved or parallel fifths. So let's draw our dominant seventh, but we have to remember to be sure that the leading tone is in the middle voice. So I have mine like this. D, A, F sharp, and C. Now, I am adding to my one a 4-3. And this is fun. It is actually, sounds really cool. Okay, so we've got our one, so we're going to put our G in the bass. Before we go farther, we say, what is a 4 above G? Because the 4 has to go to the 3. So a 4 above G is C, and it has to go to a B. We have a C in the previous chord. So we're going to come up next to the C and put the C going into the B up next to the C. What this has done is it's told you to do a sounded suspension. And this is how we force you to do it with our numeration. Most people wouldn't actually put in suspensions and appoggiaturas of their own volition. And so we have to encourage you to do it by putting it in the numbers. So now, when we resolve our leading tone, when both chords are complete, the leading tone falls to the dominant in a middle voice. And then we put in our doubled note. So that's what this guy is. So now let me show you. So we have as the first one. I'm just playing the bottom note up an octave to make it easier for my hands. Now if I play the second one, so you can hear that seventh moving. You've had pieces with that in, I already know it. And then if we do the last one, so that's a dissonance to a consonance. And people say, well, what do I do with my root quality symbols? Even though there is a dissonance here, we don't worry about it. This is the D7 and this is the G. This number has been acknowledged by this. And then just a gentle reminder that the 5-4-3 to 1-6 is a rising resolution where we have one note that stays the same and everybody else goes up a second. These 6-4 chords are absolutely imperative to understand, and it's absolutely important for us to understand that we aren't going to use a 6-4 chord in any other way. I call these prescriptions. We can only use it when it's a prescribed situation. A passing 6-4 within a bar, a neighbor 6-4, a cadential 6-4. Special about the cadential 6-4 is that the beginning of the cadential 6-4 must be on a stronger count than the resolution. So when we do this, I put this on count 1 and then this on count 2. I could also have put this on count 3 and this could be on count 4. But we're not going to ever have a bar line in the middle of this, and we wouldn't suddenly start this on count 2. So that is part of what we will end up learning how to do as we very soon start doing our hymns and figuring out how to add chords to an entire hymn that has about between 28 and 32 chords in it. It's coming, and I know you'll be ready for it. So I'm going to ask you, now that you've written all of this out in G major, to produce it for the next lesson in the key of A minor. So no key signature to worry about, but you do have to make sure that you've got your raised leading tone of G sharp wherever there is a 5 chord. I would also like you to make those tiny changes to the bottom, that this is an 8-7 and this is a 4-3, so that you get a little bit of experience with that, as it will come up again in the future. Thank you very much for a moment with Karen's theory. I look forward to having another session again soon with applied dominance.